bowling ball going back and forth in a line from you to me.
Hello everyone, welcome to another video, Randy Walsh's video. This time I have Robin Landry on with me today. I think you all know her by now, very familiar face in the Palamunso community. Actually, today we were supposed to be doing an interview we were supposed to be interviewed by someone else in the Moonhoax community. Something has happened. I hope everything's okay. I haven't heard from him, so maybe there was a miscommunication in the time zones because we're all in different time zones here. So we're hoping that we can reconnect with him, and because we certainly look forward to that interview when it does happen. So in the meantime, I thought, well, why don't we just salvage this time we have and put a short video out, Robin and I, and we can discuss many things, most of all our new book. And I'd like to talk to Robin about that because I'd like to hear what kind of responses she's been getting, because I've been getting some very interesting responses too. So without further ado, hello, Robin.
Hello, Randy. Here's our book.
Well, end of interview. That was great.
Thanks for buying it. Thanks for reading.
I think we sold 2 copies right now. Randy and Robin.
Perfect.
Anyway, Robin, you were just telling me about your mare. I found that a fascinating story. Robin is, we'll get to the book in a minute, folks, but Robin is an avid lover of horses. And can you just tell me what you tell everybody? Were you just telling me about this little, you call it a mare, right? It's
my horse is the mare, and she had a foal, and he's a colt. So a colt is a male horse. Filly is the baby female. And he was very, very sick when he first was born. He had sepsis and pneumonia. So he was rushed to the hospital at 20 hours old, and they had to hook him up to IVs and stomach pumps so that he didn't nurse and have the milk go down his trachea the wrong way and make it worse. So he's recovered with all the prayers and everyone thinking about him. That's what's good about social media. Anyway, and now he is got more energy than 3 horses, and he's become a little bit of a rascal for the vet and the shoer. And
so one big happy family.
Yes, he's very happy guy. He's a quarter horse, and he's going to be a reiner, which is like on Yellowstone where they twirl around and stop really fast.
So where do you keep the horses? Where you have like land, or do you have them somewhere where you go visit them?
I have them somewhere where I go visit them. They're like the perfect pet. So it's like a grandchild. Instead of them messing up your house, you go visit them at their house, and your house stays clean. Unlike a dog, which I love too, but we don't have a dog.
Yeah. Well, I've had, I think a dog is about my strength, Robin. I don't think I have the know-how and maybe the tolerance to raise a mare, a colt. But anyway, no, that's fascinating. But anyway, I thought that we could chat about a few things today. I know you've got some ongoing work that you're still researching, and I'm hoping that you put that work in a book. But in the meantime, speaking of books, we've been getting some interesting responses back from our book that we collaborated on together, and it's been received quite well in the Moonhoax community. And if you can hold that book up for our audience there it is. Yep, I can see it clearly there. And the book is being really received. Now, I've had some very interesting comments. And one of the comments that I've had about the book is that we didn't just get into the Paula Moonhoax in the book. It gave us an opportunity to actually go down some other rabbit holes. And that's the great thing about this subject. But one of the feedback that I have been getting, and I've gotten it from Marcus Allen and a few others, is that they actually think it's a pretty good scenario, pretty close to what maybe really happened in terms of faking the actual missions, the actual moon missions. And the thing is that a lot of it is really speculation. But that was the great thing about fiction. And when you approached me about that, I was hesitant at first, and then you sort of opened my eyes to the possibilities. And that's something that you're really, really good at, is that you can see from from the work that you've done, and research you've done, you've mentioned, and the fictional writing that you've done, that it really gives you a lot of latitude to speculate, right? You don't need sources for a fiction book. You can speculate based on what you have read, and that's really opened my mind a lot to the possibilities. Would you agree?
I agree. Fiction writers will research just as much as a nonfiction, if not more, because we have to get into the minds of the people of the time. So we have to do things like the clothes they wore, the foods they ate, their transportation. We can't just put facts in front of people. We have to embody the facts. So otherwise it's unbelievable. So you have to become someone from that time.
Yeah.
So in this book, I had the main character who's a woman. She was a non-believer, which really helps the book because, I mean, a reader can be a non-believer and go along for the ride with her as she starts to understand. And that's what fiction can do for us. It can take you along. It's like a movie.
Well, it's interesting you said that, because someone asked me, does Robin believe the Apollo moon missions are faked or not? And I said, well, that's basically the character that she's writing from. And that's what she was trying to convey in one of the interviews that we had done. And I said to this person, but I believe so now, after reading well, my first two books, and then, her own investigations and research that she has stumbled on since then. Yeah, but as I said, but the unique part is that she was in the book, the character coming from the point of view, as you said, of a skeptic. And that really, and that's a real world situation, because we come up against skeptics all the time. And although I think you would agree that we're seeing a lot more people that are receptive to this now, I think more so now after the last 4 years. And when we talk about the last 4 years, I would like to talk about that too, and how that factored into the book, but we use code words on YouTube because we got to be careful with the censors, right? But I think it opened a lot of people's eyes to not just the Apollo moon hoax, but to many other conspiracies in history. But we're focusing right now on the 20th century. And it really is. I'm pleasantly surprised, if I can put it that way, at the reception that we're getting, and that's why you and I decided to write book 2, right? And I think we'll stay with the same format, because it was your idea with the journal. Please tell people again how because you had to guide me, and you had to steer me, because I wasn't sure. I was saying to you, well, you're good at writing these characters. How am I going to do that? You came back with a classic response.
You mean the fiction is a lie that tells the truth?
Yeah. And how it was that I was going to write that truth down in the journal. Like, how was I going to develop the characters? And it was you that came up with the idea of the journal, right? And when you came up with that idea, it was like the floodgates opened. It was the very first time that I had developed a fictitious character. Actually, I think there was 2 or 3 of them in the about 3 characters, maybe 4, in the journal. It was the first time I'd done that. And when you said write it in journal form, it just made it so much easier, right? It was like just the floodgates had opened and everything just started. It was writing itself. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's how it works to write. It writes itself when you open up your imagination.
Yeah.
And listen to the voices.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's like characters.
And I'm not on any medication out there, folks.
Get paid for your voices.
Yeah, exactly. This is the good voices. This is the good voices, folks. But I never thought that we would write a fiction book. And I have to be, I am quite pleased with the response that I've been getting through emails and through comments that are made on the video. And I believe, and someone mentioned this to me. So Robin, this is a first for not only me, but it'll be a first for you as well. Somebody was mentioning this may actually be I think it was the Serge. He is I have a very good relationship with this Russian translator, and he takes work from Russian scientists and he translates it from Russian into English. And a lot of those articles are posted on the alice.com website. For those of you out there, a lot of you are familiar with it. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, that's www.alice, that's AULIS.com. And he posts a lot of his articles on the alice.com website. And he believes that this may actually be the first of its kind, the book that we wrote, the actual, first fictional account of the Apollo moon missions and how it was faked. I never thought of that, but he might be right. I don't recollect any other books out there. There are fiction books out there on landing on the moon. There's no doubt about that, but I don't know if there's any specific to the Apollo missions, right? Mm-hmm. And he had mentioned in his review where we purposely changed the names to avoid any conflict, but we kept the historical name like Apollo and Kennedy. We kept the historical figures in there, so it's very easy for people to follow. But so you have the pleasure of knowing that this is the first for the both of us.
Well, that's nice to know. I remember when I first started writing 30 plus years ago, my first book was a time travel romance using past life regression. So I was the first one to do a time travel romance before the Outlander book. So when that came out, I went, oh, darn, I just missed it. Anyway, her book's better.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. I mean, it is amazing that, I know we've agreed to do part 2, and I'm still a little bit nervous about it because it's still a new format for me, right? But I mean, you're just sitting there very casual because you're just so used to this. I mean, you've written quite a few works of fiction, and I know I've read a couple of your books. One of them, which I mentioned in previous interviews, a conspiracy fiction, which was and it was interesting how you developed the characters. But here's what's very interesting now is because while I'm just thinking about writing part 2, already in my mind, I have ideas that we're going to be talking about, because the Apollo moon missions, and this is one of the things that really is intriguing about this particular subject, you can't help but follow where it leads, because it leads into so many other conspiracies. Because the question is, well, if they faked that and they lied about this, what else are they lying about? Right? And it connects into the Kennedy assassination. It connects into the Vietnam War. It connects into, it connects into Watergate. And it connects into a lot of avenues, because the question is, well, if they faked it, where did all that money go? What was the real purpose for that money? Mm-hmm. And we're talking a lot of money, right? About, let me see, about $300 billion in today's value.
Wow, that is a lot.
Yeah. So it'd be easy to take a small chunk of that money. Let's say I'm just ballpark figure, let's say 5% to, 5-10% of that. And that's still what, $30 billion, right? Mm-hmm. To fake it. So mm-hmm. Where did the other money go? So there are a lot of questions about the Apollo missions, and I get a lot of feedback too from people. I do get some angry emails as well, and some angry comments. Right? I just had one I want to ask you about. This was a good one, because this fits in with the political climate of today, and I want to give your feedback on this as well. I've just received there was a comment on the video. And it really got me thinking. He said that I'm feeding into we both are, I guess, feeding into demolishing the accomplishments of the white man
Oh,
by, yeah. So we're by doing that because everybody involved in the Apollo missions was white and it was a white man's achievement. And by doing what I'm doing, I'm denigrating the white man's accomplishments. Well, no, I don't see it that way. I see it as looking at both sides. Okay. There are a lot of accomplishments that the white man and other cultures have made, right? And all those cultures have the same, how shall I say, misgivings or historical conspiracies, if I can put it that way, just like the white man. The white man got sidetracked. Yes, he has made a lot of accomplishments, all right. The United States of America, all that knowledge that was, they're a superpower, but that's knowledge gained from other cultures, right, and other countries, and all that knowledge was brought over. But that does not in any way diminish the white man's accomplishments. But we also have a responsibility to the world that when we're wrong, we need to admit it,
mhm.
right? And I don't think by you know, exposing the Apollo moon hoax or any other conspiracy is somehow denigrating the white man's accomplishment. I was really taken aback by that remark because it really got me thinking, because he's responding to the political climate of the last 4 years. He's got locked into that political climate and he needs to break out of that, because that's exactly what's going on now. We've seen a degradation of North American society, and it's all the white man's fault. But that's a strategy that is being used as a form of takeover of North America. That's actually been going on for several decades. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And as you being a white man, maybe you're calling them out on their lies to what we really did accomplish and is being covered up. Like, so what if it's the moon hoax? What else is going on? And uncovering lies is just as important as taking your accomplishments, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, doesn't that show from the white man's point of view, at least, and we can just talk about that for a second. Doesn't that show, what's the word I'm looking for?
Humility.
Integrity?
Humility.
Yeah, like we're exactly humility. Like we're willing to acknowledge that we're not perfect and we've screwed up,
Hmm.
and but we have the ability to fix it. But I also think that we need to be careful not to wipe out white man's history here. And the Apollo moon missions, whether people like it or not, they were faked, and it is part of our history, and we have to embrace it.
Hmm.
That's the only way to move forward. You can't live a lie. You have to embrace, and this is not a mistake. This is a deliberate act, and we need to embrace that. It's become part of us, whether we like it or not. It's part of our culture, right? The same thing with the Kennedy assassination. The Kennedy assassination is horrible in and of itself, but we turned our backs on that event. We rolled over and went back to sleep.
Hmm.
Time and time again, when new information about that came out, we refused to grab the bull by the horns and go even deeper to find out what really happened. And it's left up to people, researchers who devoted their lives to try to bring that truth out. And now that's coming out, right? And of course, I'm writing a book on that myself. So it's a subject I do love talking about, right? But there's more to it. And when that comment came in, um, you know, online about on the video about, I'm denigrating white man's accomplishment, I think I'm doing the opposite. I think as a white man, we have to take responsibility for what we've done and some of the harms that we've done. But we've done a lot of good,
Hmm.
as well, and a lot of good. And I would say the good outweighs that, because there's a lot of people that have a conscience. And although they weren't willing to show it, they realized that what we were doing was wrong, right? I mean, I've heard many people say it, Robin. You know what? I don't believe we went to the moon, but I don't like to talk about it because, people call me a conspiracy theory, right? Or, yeah, what the hell are we doing over in that war in that country? Why are we there? Like they know, but because of peer pressure, family pressure, peer pressure, coworkers, so on and so forth, they're reluctant to speak out, right? But that's now changing, and that's the good news. And that's why I think our book is being received so well, because it gives people an opportunity to come out in the open and speculate themselves. And that's really what I'm encouraging people to do. Stop hiding, stop being afraid. I'm not asking you to argue with anybody. You don't want to get into conflicts, but speak your mind and speak it with articulation, right? And I think we've shown you one way to do it, and that's through fiction. Would you agree?
Yes, because fiction asks a question. You don't have to believe it or not, but you can start a discussion. And I think if you don't want to argue, ask people questions
Yeah,
and let
yeah,
them open the door as far as they want it to open it, and then you just let them shut it when they want to.
yeah,
As I was discussing with a Canadian friend over hating our past president, and I just let her talk, and then I was done. You have to know when to step back
yeah.
and allow people to go as fast as they want to go. Because
It's
all the conspiracies at once, they might have a heart attack.
it's
About
really
fiction is
interesting.
it allows them to take their time.
Yeah,
They can read a book as quickly as they want or as slow as they want. They can ask a friend, did you read that? What did you think about it? Or a movie. But a book that has nothing but facts is like, you're supposed to believe it because it's facts, and you have to. But fiction, you don't
yeah.
have to believe it.
No, um, and that's the thing about it, and it's very interesting because um, something else came up that I thought was interesting. And I don't subscribe to this theory, but is began because of our book, our fiction book, and it's opened up some other avenues. A person in Ireland has come up with a theory that the moon is only 2,000 miles away, and she uses mathematics to prove her point. Now, I haven't looked at her work, and I was asked about it in a recent interview, and all I said was, well, I'm always quick. I'm not quick to put anybody else's work down. I mean, I looked at her work. I took a cursory look at it, but I don't offhand. My first impression is I don't see it, right? But I understand the physics. The moon is 238,000, 237,000 miles away. I understand the physics, 240,000, around about there anyway. Being a pilot, I should know that, and I do. That's the standardized physics, and I agree with that. She's come up with mathematics to prove that that's actually incorrect. Okay, it sounds really far-fetched. And all I said was in the interview is that I would have to, she maybe puts a book out and I can actually study it and take my time with the math, because I've been 40 years out of school, so I would rely on my math. And that's all I said, and I got attacked for that. And I got attacked for saying that. I should have come out and said, no, that's not true. But I don't like to put anybody else's work down. I've looked at the flat earth theory. I don't see it. Somebody has proof, then I read their proofs. I still don't see it. But I read it. And there's nothing wrong with looking into it, right?
I have a theory on the flat earth because I do think there's a lot of merit to what people are talking about. I also believe in the globe earth because there's a lot of merit to that it's a round sphere. So I've decided that it could be a flat plane under a dome on a large earth. And I got this idea from a YouTube video. I can't remember his name, and he got kicked off, of course, which is how we know people are telling the truth. But he's on Rumble now. I don't know if you've heard of him, God Glofsky.
Yes, I have. Yeah, yeah.
So I like that theory. And he said our little dome has been invaded by parasites. So what a body will do is form a blister over it, and that's exactly what we would be under, a blister, because the Earth's trying to protect herself while these parasites rage. And what will happen is our human bodies will reflect what's going on in the Earth, because we are the Earth. And what is prevalent right now? An invasion of parasites, and we get cancer, and a tumor is covering up the cancerous, holding it in like a blister does. So it's forming a tumor around it to protect the rest of the body, to isolate it. So if we are on a being and it's been infected, it will do the same thing. It's a hard concept to understand because it's so huge that we're on a living being. But I explore these things on my Instagram channel, and we get some wild things going. It's really interesting.
Well, you know, when you were talking about that, and I'm not going to say this word for fear that it could take the video down, but there was a certain drug in the last 4 years that was banned in favor of this, and that particular drug actually won a Nobel Peace Prize, and it may exactly have to do with the fact that it deals directly what you were just talking about right now.
Your love's just like a wrecking ball going back and forth in a line from